To Siman Chafhei Seif Yud Beis. Now the Mechaber Shita is a meniach tefillin kama pamim bayayim tzarich levarach aleim b'chol yipam. The Mechaber Shita is every time you put on tefillin and take it off and you put it back on, you have to make another bracha. At this point, it seems from the Mechaber, it doesn't matter how long you take it off. It doesn't matter whether you had mind to put it back on. It doesn't matter whether you're going to the bathroom or not going to the bathroom. You always have to make another bracha. Now the Mishnah Berurah says b'chol pam afilu. The Mishnah Berurah says im kishesila kayadaita lahachzir teikef. Even if your intention is to put it back on, according to the Mechaber, Sfaradim make another bracha. Afilu im loishin mekayma. Even if you didn't change the room. Harama b'samach palakaza. But the Rama is going to disagree, as we'll get to in a moment. Zak the Mechaber. The Mechaber says nishvatu mimkayman umimashrishan lachzir mimkayman sarich levarich. The Mechaber says not even take it off. Let's say just the shel roish shifts. Now, obviously, it shifts past the point where you're no longer yaitza, not within the makom. It goes mamish, or the shel yad goes to like the end of the bicep by the elbow, which you're not yaitza, and you put it back, another bracha. Zak the Rama. I'm sorry, the Mishnah Berurah says, Nishmatu, Kasav Ashla, Hadaloi Nehiga, Inna Levar Kishanishmum Kaiman. Why is it that nobody makes this bracha anymore? Mishum de b'shas tefillah mistama ein mesiach daita mehem v'avekecholtzam naslach ziran the pasuk hagab b'samach dein lachs levarich. Even this, the Ramah is going to be choyle, because the Ramah shita, as we'll see in a moment, is that if you had das when you took it off, that you're going to put it back on, no bracha. Now over here, where it just quickly moved, what do you mean das? I didn't have das; it just happened on its own. During davening, das is to always have tefillin on. So therefore, if it moves during davening, you would not have to make another bracha. But by the way, if after davening is over, let's say by a bris, you keep your tefillin on sometimes, and then it moves, then even the Ramasa would say a bracha. So according to the Mechaber, a bracha every time. Zak the Ramah, ve'imach zerechem mehem yavara k'moshim nech tefillah achas k'dl kaman. Okay, and by the way, if only one of them moves, you only make one bracha, fine. Zak the Mechaber, hazizim and kaiman adayt lachzir miyad tzarich levarich. And the Mechaber says even if you moved it with the intention to put it back on, always a bracha. Zak the Ramah, v'yesh oimim shaloi levarich. The minhag by Ashkenazim is we don't make another bracha. V'hachi noig. As long as you had das to put it back on, or the Mishnah Berurah says it wasn't too long of a break. Now, how long is a break? The Balatanya says,
That's only when it's intentional.
Correct. Or during davening, even unintentional, because during davening there's always das. So if you had in mind when you took it off that you're going to put it back on, as long as it wasn't within more than a 2 to 3 hour break, the Balatanya's lashon is 2 to 3 hours. 2 to 3 hours, no bracha. That's the sheet of the Ramah. Now, the Mishnah Berurah does say an interesting thing. The Mishnah Berurah says, I'm sorry. If you took him off to go to the bathroom, and you enter the bathroom, you have to make another bracha. Why? I had in mind. The answer is, the whole having in mind makes it that it doesn't separate. Going to the bathroom, you're not allowed to bring tefillin into the bathroom. So the mere entrance into the bathroom is an automatic hefsek. And says the Mishnah Berurah, similarly, if you take off the tefillin and you pass gas, you're not allowed to pass gas the tefillin on. So doing that is an automatic hefsek, another bracha. Now, by the way, the Biur Halacha brings down at the very end of the second Biur Halacha, he says, "Nir pashta choltzim b'teicha tefila afilu mistama." If you took off the tefillin to go outside and urinate, no bracha. Why? Because technically you're allowed to urinate outside the bathroom with tefillin on. I would advise this, but it's technically not aser. So I'll never forget, I don't remember what Rav Chaim wrote, but there's a Sefer Halichas Chaim that has Shitas Rav Chaim Kanievsky. And he said that you have to make a bracha to urinate. When you take off your tefillin, you have to make a bracha. So I sent him, it's the only time I sent him a shayla, I sent him the lashon of the Biur Halacha, and I said, so he wrote these words, Zerak kishetzarach lachleitz masha'ein kein lahashtin. Those were his words. You don't have to take off tefillin when you urinate, and therefore, but I will say this. So it's technically allowed. We'll get to it at some point. The minhag now obviously is, because they used to wear tefillin all day. I think you have to take off the shel roish, not the shel yad. We take off our tefillin. And by the way, nowadays, we don't urinate in the street anymore. No, we don't. So the point is, you go into the bathroom, it's an automatic hefsek anyway. So it's not as negeya. Okay, just to finish up the Mechaber, it's not as relevant, but we'll read through it. Misha meniach tefillin shel yad ubirich ubaschol sehidik nifsak hakesher shel yad. You make the bracha, and as you're about to tie it, the knot snaps. So now you got to start adjusting and tying and fixing it. V'hutzich lasses kesher acher. I'm gonna lay a siach dait in tzarich las levarach. No bracha is needed because you're not masiach das. You're oisik in it. It might take time, but that's not considered hefsek because you're in the process of trying to get the tefillin on.
Because it's longer than
It's still that's by Shmon Esrei. This no time span. Levarach im huter shel yad koydem anachal shel roish mahadkan vein tzarich las levarach. Similarly, much more practical. You're putting on the shel yad, and as you're doing this, as you let's say in the middle of the arm, this loosens. You have to tighten it. Again, not a problem. But av menir shel roish v'achach huter shel yad mahadich mevarich. But if after you put the shel roish on, then the shel yad goes out of place, the mechaber lishitaso is you'd have to make another bracha. Muter levarich al tefillin shulin v'loy al gezulin. You're allowed to make a bracha on borrowed tefillin, meaning you don't have to own the tefillin. By the way, the Mishnah Berurah adds the mechaber lishitasa holds you're allowed to borrow without asking permission, which nowadays the Aruch HaShulchan says we don't do. But technically, you're allowed to borrow someone's tefillin without asking permission because we assume the average person would not mind. That's the mechaber sheet in Siman Yudalid. Although the Aruch HaShulchan says nowadays people mind a little bit, so maybe it's not as good. But you're not allowed to make a bracha on stolen tefillin because it's a mitzvah haba ba'aver.